the Divorced Girl Smiling Podcast with your host, Jackie Pilosoff.
No one should have to go through a divorce feeling alone and isolated. The Divorced Girl Smiling Podcast is a production of Divorced Girl Smiling, where every show is 30 minutes aimed to empower you, help you feel validated and understood, and connect you with some of the best divorce professionals in the industry. So grab a cup of coffee or a glass of wine and start smiling as you join us right now for the Divorced Girl Smiling Podcast. Heard everywhere podcasts can be found and always at divorcedgirlsmiling.com. Before we get started, I want to talk about one of the most stressful aspects of getting divorced. It's when you feel like your spouse might be hiding money. And to hire a forensic accountant or ask your divorce attorney to do that, it can cost tens of thousands of dollars. And a lot of people either can't afford that or they don't think it's worth it because the cost might not outweigh the benefit. Well, guess what? There's something you can do. You can go to Divorce Money Guide. It has you covered. The Divorce Money Guide is an online guide to help you find hidden money in your divorce. It was developed by well-known forensic accountant Tracy Conan, and it's a tool. It's a 10-step handbook that walks you through what to do to find the money your husband could be hiding. If you want to learn more, go to divorcemoneyguide.com. I also want to tell you about a wonderful nanny agency that can help you find a nanny, a babysitter, an au pair for either your kids or a caregiver for an elderly person. Bryn Ungerleider is the founder of Premier Nanny Network. And the wonderful thing about Bryn is that she's been babysitting and nannying her whole life since she was a preteen. She has an amazing love for children, and she carried that over, that dedication, to make sure kids have good, caring role models. And that's what led her to start Premier Nanny Network. So if you want to learn more about Premier Nanny Network, you can go to premiernannynetwork.com. Bryn places nannies and babysitters and caregivers all over the country. I also want to tell you about one more wonderful resource. Vicki Vollweiler is a college funding and financial aid expert, and she's the founder of College Financial Prep. I got divorced when my kids were 3 and 5. Fast forward 12 years later, the 5-year-old started applying to colleges. I was clueless. I had no idea how we were going to pay. I wasn't sure of the best colleges. I didn't even know what a FAFSA was. Vicki is your go-to person that can help you with anything college related and anything divorce college related. If you want to learn more, you can find Vicki at collegefinancialprep.com. I am not okay. I betcha that is something that has been said by anyone who has ever considered getting divorced or going through one or even after divorce. And that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about the fact that it's okay not to be okay as long as you're safe and, don't feel like you might harm yourself or something like that. Then you need to call 911. But it's okay to just cry and say, I'm not okay. My guest to talk about this is the one who wrote an article called I'm Not Okay. Her name is Darlene Taylor, and Darlene is a former social worker turned divorce and co-parenting coach. Hi, Darlene.
Hello.
I can't believe I forgot to also say Darlene is the author of her book, It's Not About Us, a co-parenting survival guide to taking the high road. And Darlene, I cannot wait to get into this conversation with you because you are somebody who lived this. You went through a divorce. You learned how to make it not about you guys. And you offer all kinds of co-parenting tips and how to be happy in your book.
That was the plan. That was the plan all along. Obviously, divorce was not on my agenda of things to do. And when I found myself there, my whole thing was just like, I have to figure out how to do this in a way that doesn't permanently damage my kid and that makes it so that I'm better on the other side of it, you know? I mean, I really believe that, everything that we go through is a growth opportunity, right? And even the things that we don't necessarily want, the things that are really, really hard. And sometimes those are the things that we grow the most from. And I definitely think that was the case here. But yeah, I really wanted to try to make the best of a bad situation that I really didn't want, but that I found myself.
And help others.
Yeah.
Okay, now, was there a time in your life, if you wrote this article, it's not, I'm not okay. Obviously, you said that to yourself when you were getting divorced. Tell us about that.
Yes, so the divorce was actually initiated by me after, and anybody who's gone through that process knows it's not something that it's not a decision that you make on a whim, right? It was, lots of time agonizing about what to do and finally arriving at the space that this is what needed to happen. And so in the very beginning, I am not okay was just this guilt of, like, making that decision, and then the sadness that followed that decision, and then feeling like I wasn't entitled to have that sadness because I was choosing this, and so I really was just sort of pushing through like, "No, this is what I said I wanted, and this is what we're doing, and so it's fine," and that was what I told myself for the first couple of months, and as you're, finding a divorce attorney and separating and all of the bad yuckiness at the very beginning, and I was like, "No, I'm fine. This is what I wanted, and this is what we're doing." Um, and then I found myself, my daughter was in preschool at the time, and I found myself dropping her off at preschool and coming home and crawling back in bed and pulling the covers over my head until I had to go pick her up. And doing that, days and days and days in a row, and finally, I'm just like, "Okay, I don't think I'm okay." Like, this is
Okay, but
not what I'm
Darlene,
supposed to be
it
doing.
sounds to me like, were you like kind of angry with yourself? Like, this is what you wanted, so you don't have the right to feel sad or mourn the marriage.
Right.
And I'm not saying that's true. That's actually not the case at all.
Not
But
at all.
we do that to ourselves.
I think part of it for me, I think it was all internally because I don't think anybody said that to me. Nobody outside said that to me, but I think that was what I was thinking that everyone else was thinking, right? Like you're the one who pulled the rug out from under your life, so you don't get to be sad, right? And I think even though I think we tell ourselves that even if we make these hard decisions that we can't have these two emotions that seem so different exist at the same time, and they very much do. You can very much be in mourning for the loss of something that you chose to walk away from, because it's still a loss. A loss is a loss, and it doesn't matter why the end of this marriage happened. You're mourning the marriage, you're mourning the life that you thought you were going to have, you're mourning the future that you had planned. You're mourning the other relationships that are probably going to change, if not be lost in all of this. So there's a lot of loss happening, and it doesn't matter why it's happening. It's loss, and it still feels, and your body knows that, and your heart knows that. So you're going to be sad, and it's okay.
And just because you're sad and you're upset about it doesn't mean it's the wrong decision. It's the right decision. It's two totally separate things, and you have to go through that if you know in the end that you're doing the right thing.
And I think that's what gets you through the hardest pieces of it. Like, I know that this as hard as this is, I know this is the right thing to do. I know, it feels crappy and also it feels like the right thing to do. And I think for much of life, I think, is learning and understanding that you can hold things that feel very contradictory at the same time. Two things can be true at the same time. And I think that
Absolutely.
wrapping your head around that helps.
All right. Now, I want to ask you something. What do you have to say? What advice for that woman who's laying in bed till it's time to pick up the kids at school and can't get out of bed and is saying, I'm not okay? What's the advice?
Um, Talk to someone. You need to talk to someone professionally. You need to find a therapist, find a coach, find some support.
Both.
The
Both.
both. The people in your life are wonderful. I had wonderful family and wonderful friends around me, and also I needed some other support than the support that they were giving me. It was sort of their job to sort of hold me up and make sure that I knew that I was loved. but I needed to process my grief. I needed to process all of the emotions that were happening, and those weren't the people that I needed to process them with because they're emotionally invested in me feeling better, right? And so it's going to be really hard for them to be objective and to give me the help that I needed. And so even as a therapist, it took a lot for me to go, you know what? You need to call someone. You were depressed. And I didn't wanna believe it. I was like, "No, I'm fine. I'm tough. I can do this." And I'm like, "No." And for me, it was like, what would I tell my friend if I knew that she was doing what I had been doing for the last several weeks? I would have been like, "We're making an appointment right now. Let's find a therapist for you." And so those rules still apply to me too. So yeah, I would say definitely, reach out, find a therapist and, get started working on your healing because that's as big of a piece of this as everything else. And your kids, if you have kids, that's what they need you to be doing. That's one of the main things they need you to be doing.
You're listening to the Divorced Girl Smiling podcast. My name is Jackie Pilosoff, and I'm your host. I am not okay. That's what we're talking about today. My guest is divorce and co parenting coach Darlene Taylor, author of her book, It's Not About Us, a co parenting survival guide to taking the high road. If you've been listening to the podcast so far and you want to have a consult with Darlene and seek the help we're talking about, you can go to darlenetaylor.com. And we are going to take a break. When we come back, we are going to talk about more advice for I'm Not Okay. And then we're also going to get into what's in Darlene's book. I'm so excited. We'll be right back. I want to take a minute and recommend two Divorced Girl Smiling trusted professionals who I think are wonderful. The first one is Sharon Oberst DeFalla. Sharon is a divorce attorney and founder of Oberst DeFalla Law based in Norwalk, Connecticut. Sharon and I talked for so long because Sharon is like that. She's full of positive energy. She's a great listener. She's full of this like peace and calmness. And I could see how Sharon's clients would feel so confident in trusting her. She's been a divorce lawyer since 1992, and she helps her clients get divorced via mediation. I love Sharon. She's a wonderful divorce attorney, and I would highly recommend her. If you want to learn more, go to oberstlaw.com. I also want to recommend a wonderful mortgage lender and certified divorce lending professional, a CDLP. Her name is Jan Leisure, and Jan works for Diamond Residential Mortgage Corp. Jan has been a mortgage lender since 1997. She's an amazing person, so experienced, and can help you answer questions like, can I afford to stay in my home? What's my financial situation going to look like if I stay in my home? What if I want to buy a new home? How much can I afford? Cannot recommend Jan more. I think so highly of her. She's wonderful. If you want to learn more, go to diamondresidential.com/Jan Leisure. Welcome back to the Divorced Girl Smiling podcast. My name is Jackie Pilosoff, and I'm your host. Today I'm here with Darlene Taylor, life, divorce, and parenting coach. She's the author of her book, It's Not About Us, a co-parenting survival guide to taking the high road. And Darlene and I are talking about some advice for those who feel like I'm not okay. And then we're going to get into the book. Darlene, what, besides getting support, calling a therapist, calling a divorce coach to get through this, and by the way, before I ask you for what other advice, I want to say the difference between why I said you should have both. A lot of these therapists, tell me if you agree, they haven't been through a divorce. Every divorce coach that I know who's on Divorce Girl Smiling has been through a divorce, including Darlene. And so there's a very different dynamic going on there. And also, a divorce coach is going to give you practical advice and a plan, a game plan. Here's how you're going to get through this. A therapist is going to discuss your past, why you're feeling this way. There are good that comes with both. But Darlene, don't you feel like there's a big difference in that people need both?
Oh, 100%. Yes, I did not have a coach, and I think that that would have been really helpful. I think what happens when you don't have a coach is that you start to try to lean on the other professionals, mainly your attorney, who's not a divorce coach usually, and they don't have the time, the bandwidth, or the expertise to muddle through all of the feelings that you're feeling, and that's not their job, right? And I think that in order to make the practical decisions that you need to make during a divorce, you need to have some guidance, and you need to be dealing with, the emotions and being able to learn how to put the emotional piece over here so that you can make good, sound decisions about your life moving forward. And I think that's one of the things that a coach really helps you do is to keep those things separated.
And a coach is trained. There's a coaching certificate. So it's not like anybody can hang up a shingle and say, I'm a coach. Well, they can actually, but look for those credentials. Like Darlene is a social worker also. That's a big deal, And so, okay, we can move on. But I just wanted people to know the importance that everybody just says to get a therapist, get a therapist. And I think that's wonderful. But I think that if divorce coaches would have been around when I was getting divorced, and this was in 2008, divorce coaching didn't exist then, and I would have made such better decisions, had a better experience, and a better divorce outcome.
Yeah.
Tell me about some of this other advice that you offered in your article that was published on Divorce Girl Smiling, starting with respect the rest.
Yeah, I think, a lot of times, particularly I think for women, we sort of put on our cape, our superwoman cape, and we're pushing through and we're doing, we're gonna be able to just like power through whatever it is that we're going through. And rest is as much of a part of any good plan as anything else is. Like, I'm also a personal trainer, and I used to always tell my clients that your rest days are as important as your workout days because that's when your body is repairing how you've broken it down during the workouts. And that's when you're getting stronger. On your rest days are actually when you're getting stronger. And I think the same thing applies here. There are sometimes, in a way, I guess it is sort of a fight, right? And there are going to be times that you need to sort of push through and pushing through the hard things. And so you have to have that time in there to take care of yourself. You have to have that time in there to recharge and to rebuild and to build your stamina so that you're able to push through on the days that you need to push through and that you're able to take care of the other people in your life that you do need to take care of. Yeah, I think the rest
So
is
does rest mean it's okay to sit in front of the TV and watch Netflix for a day if you just don't feel like doing anything? Does rest mean I'm going to force myself to go to yoga for 1 hour and lay on my mat and reflect? What does rest mean in a practical sense?
I think rest means all of that and whatever makes your soul feel recharged. Sometimes my soul needs to be on my couch ordering DoorDash and watching Netflix and not thinking about anything else. And that's what I needed to do on that day and giving yourself permission to have that day. Now, if you're doing that for 5 days in a row, maybe that's not rest, maybe that's avoidance. But sometimes on a Sunday where it's just been a lot, I'm like, you know what? I just need to not do anything and not feel bad about it. And reframe it in like, no, this is me taking care of myself. Sometimes rest for me means going to yoga. Sometimes rest for me means going to get a massage. Sometimes rest for me means sitting on the couch and drinking wine and watching Netflix. And so whatever it is that's going to bring you back to center a little bit more, whatever it is that's going to quiet your mind, quiet your soul, and make you feel like you're pouring into yourself a little bit because we constantly try to pour out, especially as women and as moms, are pouring out, and you can't pour from an empty bucket. And so whatever it is that's going to fill you up, sometimes rest is spending time with your friends. Again, I think it's just that thing that's going to make you feel a little bit more full, a little bit more like yourself so that you can push through on the hard days.
Okay, then you say next, take an inventory of the things in your life that bring you joy.
When you're in the middle of when you're in the middle of the storm, I think it can be really hard to see and remember that there is still good going on around you, that there are things that still feel good, that you can still feel good, that you will at some point again enjoy enjoy life and you will smile and you will laugh and you will have days that are not bogged down with only being able to think about this horrible thing that's going on in your life. And so being really intentional about taking the time to tap back into those things. And they can be really simple things. But just, thinking about what makes me happy, what makes me smile, even if it's going for taking your dog for a walk, that's on a sunny day, do that. If it's coloring in a coloring book, I had this a friend of mine bought me an adult coloring book with swear words in it, and it was awesome. She bought me the swear word coloring book
Yeah,
with,
I love it.
colored pencils, and they were hilarious, and just looking at opening the book made me laugh, and so I was like, "You know what? I'm gonna color a swear word coloring page today." That's what I
I
did.
absolutely love that idea. The thought of coloring is appealing to me.
Right.
You also wrote a decorated cupcake. How much joy does that bring us if you see this beautiful cupcake in a bakery? Get it.
Love yeah,
Don't
do all the
feel
things.
guilty and you are allowed to eat that whole thing. We just feel guilty about way too much stuff like, "Oh, I should be working." If you need to go take a walk on the beach or a walk outside, your work will be able to sustain your break, and you'll be so much better for it too.
Yep, absolutely. Like, if you are not taking care of yourself, you cannot be who and what you want to be in all of the other realms of your life. So if you're not doing the things to take care of yourself, you're not gonna be the worker that you wanna be or the partner that you wanna be or the mom that you wanna be. So this is your first job, is taking care of yourself.
Absolutely, and I love what you wrote at the end of the piece. You wrote, "The ability to unapologetically allow yourself to do what soothes your soul is one of the highest forms of self-love." That's really powerful and really true. Darlene, let's move on to your book. Tell us a few really good ways for parents, especially at the beginning of a divorce, to have a healthy co-parenting relationship because there's so much anger and resentment, especially at the beginning. And
Yes.
people are like, "I just never wanna talk to him again. I'm not gonna even deal with him. We'll do everything through our attorneys, and I'm never speaking to him again." I
Right.
said that. Everyone I know has said that. So tell me what's in the book.
So the book is there are four pillars of co-parenting, and the way that I set up the book, because it's a memoir, it's a self-help book, and but it's also a memoir. It's my story. And so each chapter in the book is sort of centered around a story or something that happened early on in our daughter's life. She was 2 when we separated. So a lot of this stuff happened between the ages of like 2 and 5 or 6, because that's when we were sort of figuring out what this whole co-parenting thing was gonna look like. Neither one of us had
I wanna tell everyone who's listening that Darlene's daughter is now, like, 18. So it's
18, yeah.
not like this happened yesterday. And by the way, caution to people listening. Don't hire a divorce coach who got divorced 2 years ago because they're still healing too, and it's just not a good thing because I don't think they can be objective yet. What do you think?
No, I agree. I think you need some time. I think you need some space. Those are my things. I'm like, time, space, and grace. Like, you need to give yourself all 3 of those things in order to heal and to get to a place where you can co-parent. And I think that's the first thing, to give yourself a break, understand that this co-parenting thing is a journey, that there are no hard and fast rules to it, that it will change as the needs of your child changes. It will change as your family, kind of morphs into whatever iterations it's going to be in the future, whether you get a new partner or they get a new partner or whatever. But I think the biggest piece of it is to just know and understand that if you have children, you are still a family. It's not the family that you wanted. It's not the family that you thought you were going to have. But you are still a family. You are still connected. And this doesn't end when they're 18 years old. There's going to be weddings and graduations and babies and all of the things to come in the future. And what you don't want is your children to be on having one of the most important days of their lives and be stressed because they understand that their parents can't be in the same room. On my
And you know what? I also think people don't look that far ahead. Like if you're getting divorced and your kids are 13, you're not really thinking about that. But I have a 21 and a 23-year-old. And believe me, there are many, many co parenting issues that are still going on. Everything from that first job out of college, let's help them get a job or anything. It's not even just good times. It's like they still have issues as young adults that you might have to discuss. So it does not end after college.
definitely does not. And so I think understanding that, that the relationship will evolve, but that you are still a family. And so, I guess so each chapter, like I said, is centered around a story and the lesson that I learned from that story. And the lessons are sort of summed up in what I call the hard-won wisdoms. And so there are 15 of those throughout the book. And so, the first one is basically kind of understanding that your divorce is going to change you. You may never fully be over it. You're going to carry the loss of that relationship and the loss of that family with you. And so to be okay with that, be gentle with yourself as you're going through this, understanding that that again, like I said before, this is a loss and you get to grieve no matter what the circumstances are, you get to grieve. And know that you're not going to stay in that space and stay in the depths of that. But as far as co-parenting goes, I think the biggest thing when I talk to co-parents, the crux of co-parenting well together is understanding and being able to separate the partner from the parent. This person may not have been a great partner for you. That doesn't mean that they're not a great parent. At some point, ideally you looked at this person and thought, yes, we're going to have a family and this is the person that I want to parent my children with. Right. So at some point you decided that this person was a worthy parent. And so now just because the relationship between the two of you has shifted doesn't necessarily mean, most of the time doesn't mean that their ability to still parent well has shifted, right? And so a lot of co-parenting is about letting go of the control, understanding that, there are going to be two different households. As much as you can communicate and keep consistency between the two, there is a sense of like what happens there, I have no control over, and I have to be okay with that. And understanding that different isn't always bad. There may be ways that they parent that is a little bit different than yours, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's detrimental to your children. And so again, being able to be okay with that and understand that I don't get to control everything that happens in my kid's life. And really just respecting the role of the other parent, like respecting the fact that no matter what happened in your marriage, your kid still needs a mom or your kid still needs a dad, and that has nothing to do with you, and you have a responsibility to not get in the way of that relationship. For a lot of people, they don't wanna facilitate it. There's just a lot of things. In my opinion, I feel like when kids are very small, I felt like for me, I should say, I felt like it was my responsibility to continue to facilitate and make sure that she did have a good relationship with her dad when she was little because I wanted that for her. Um, but at the
And
very
that's not easy to do.
no, it's not. Especially not. I mean, just depending on what happened in the marriage, it's very difficult to do. But again, that's kind of why I called the book said the book is it's not about us because it wasn't about me, but wasn't about how angry I was at him or how sad I was. It was about the fact that, I wanted her to have a good relationship with her dad because something that's going to impact her for the rest of her life, the nature and the quality of that relationship. And I didn't want to be the one that was standing in the way of that. And so I say, if you can't facilitate it, at the very least, don't get in the way of it.
Okay, so I wasn't spacing out. I was actually buying your book on Amazon because I'm so excited to read it. I just got it. I'm really excited to read it, Darlene. And also, I want to tell everybody listening, I don't know if you can hear the thunderstorms going on here right now, but it was a
Oh my
little
gosh.
distracting. Yeah, it's okay. We'll live. Um, Darlene, last question. What about people who really want a good co-parenting relationship, but their ex is just making it impossible? You can only take the high road for so long before you want to say to somebody, you know what? I've been so nice to you for 3 months. I'm like sucking up to you and screw you because I don't have to take your shit anymore. Like, I mean, right? What do you
Yeah.
do? How do you co-parent with somebody who's just a complete jerk and is making it impossible and then, like, doesn't talk to you, like, decides, "I'm just gonna give her the silent treatment." Well, when you have kids, you can't give someone the silent treatment.
Right. I think that's where you sit back and you go, okay, I only have control over me. So what kind of co-parent do I want to be? My guiding principle through this whole thing was that my belief was that the only person in the world that I owed an explanation to was my daughter. And I didn't I chose my behavior because I didn't want to I knew that at some point she would have the right to ask me why things happened the way that they happened, why I did what I did, and I didn't want to be embarrassed or ashamed of the way that I behaved. And that's what I used to guide myself because there were definitely times where I wanted to be like, "You know what? Like, I'm done." And just be done with
Course.
it. But I'm like, I could do that, and in the moment, it might feel really good. At the end of the day, it's not gonna get me what I want, keeping your eye on the prize. What do I want at the end of the day? I wanna raise a good human. I wanna raise a good, emotionally stable, emotionally well-adjusted human. And all I can do is my part in that, and if my part in that is taking the high road and biting a hole through my tongue if I have to, so that she sees me behaving in a way that is always respectful, that is always, courteous. It doesn't, you don't have to be best friends. It would be great if you could be friends or friendly. That would be great, but at the very least, the respect is there because what happens is when you aren't respectful to the other co-parent, when they hear you saying negative things about them or to them, they internalize that. It feels like you're talking to them, and that is damage that you cannot undo.
And you
So
know what that does? Damages their self-esteem.
yes, they take because they
And
feel like we're talking
the
about them.
worst thing. Yeah,
It's the
right.
worst thing you can do.
That is the worst thing. They must think, "Well, if my dad isn't a good person, then maybe I'm not either." And then they
Yeah.
grow up with low self-esteem, which is the worst thing that you can possibly have. I mean, you do not I'm not saying to everybody listening if you've already badmouthed your ex, no judgment here. I've done it. We've all done it. We're not perfect. We're just trying to help you, do it
Yeah, and
less,
just
do it a lot
moving
less.
forward, I mean, all when you know better, you do better, right? And so, if today, if that's the only thing that you take from this conversation, great. And if that makes you, say a few, less a few things that are not as bad and kind of biting your tongue around your kid, then that's great because that's only going to be helpful to them, right? So it's not easy, but I think I watch people. My sister has a very trying co-parenting relationship, and it's very hard for and she's like, "I'm staying on the high road, I'm staying on the high road." And so, ideally you would like to co-parent. Oftentimes what happens in those situations, it's more of a parallel parenting situation. They communicate only when they have to, only about their son. But again, it's letting go of that control. Like, I can't control what he does or says about me to me. All I can do is be the kind of parent that I want to be for my kid, to be as stable as I can, to give them as much love as I can, because really, kids just need one good parent. If they just need one of you to be stable. I mean, really, like if you're both kind of shit show, then yeah, it's going to be bad. But if they've got one of you that is loving, that is caring, that is consistent, that is stable, then they will be okay. And so be that, and don't, it as much as you can, don't get sucked in. They know, people who have loved us before know where our buttons are, and they know how to pull us in and suck us in and poke the bear and all the things. And so, trying to just do your part to not engage, to just, to do all of do all of the communication in writing so that you can show like, "Hey, this is what I've been trying to do. This is how I've been, I have not been engaging in the arguing and the going back and forth. I'm doing my part. I'm doing what I am supposed to do. That is all I have control over. And at the end of the day, that's really what it is. Like, I'm doing what I can do. I think I said this to you before. My goal when I started co-parenting was like, I'm just gonna be the kind of co-parent that I want and hope for him to be toward me. And maybe he'll meet me there. And I was lucky because he did. We didn't have a conversation about it, and it was really rocky at the beginning. But after a couple of years, like, I feel like he kind of met me there up on the high road, like, okay, this is what we're doing. We're gonna do this
I
amicably.
sort of have that similar story. So yeah, maybe it's more common than we think. So
Yeah.
that's good. That's very hopeful. Darlene, everything with you is hopeful. Thank you so much for taking time to be on the podcast.
Course. Thanks for having me. I love talking about this. And that was the reason that I wrote the book, is that I wanted to give people hope. Because at the beginning, I did not think that I would ever get to the place that I am right now with her dad and the co-parenting relationship we had. We're actually friends. I'm really good friends with his current partner. It's one big happy family. I recognize that that's not the route that everybody's going to take, and that's okay. But there is hope, even if it starts out bad and even if it starts out ugly. You can get to a place where it's not always going to be that way.
I agree. If you want to talk to Darlene and consult with her or work with her, you can find her at darlenetaylor.com. If you want to get her book, which I just ordered, you can go to Amazon, or let's see where else. I got it on Amazon. Where else, Darlene?
Barnes and Noble. I think it's on Barnes and Noble. There's also on Amazon, there is a guided journal that goes with it as well. I love journaling, and I know that journaling is hard for a lot of people, but the guided journal is really cool because it gives you different prompts to kind of help you put into practice some of the things that are in the book. So
And that's what you do also in coaching, right? You give them homework assignments to do journaling and things like that. I just love this, and I can't wait to read the book. It's called It's Not About Us, a co-parenting.
survival guide to taking
Okay,
care.
thank you.
And it's on I think it's on Spotify. There is an audio version for people who maybe don't have time to read. There's an audiobook as well. So
Love it. And to my listeners, if you want to find Darlene on Divorced Girl Smiling, go to divorcedgirlsmiling.com. She's under coaches. And you can also go there to read articles, listen to more podcasts, or sign up for my free consult. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. We'll talk to you real soon.